Donald Trump has announced a 100% tariff on branded pharmaceuticals, raising concerns over trade, inflation, the future of drug pricing in the United States, also the impact on countries like Australia. Joining us now from Sydney, Professor Tim Harcourt from UTS, host of the Airport Economist channel here on Ticker. Good to see you, Tim. What exactly has Trump announced on pharma tariffs?
Well, he's announced 100% tariffs, but he has said if a pharmaceutical company sets up a plant or equipment in the United States, then they'll be exempt. Now, two things. One is we expected a lot worse. We expected 250%, not 100. So in some ways, 100's too much, but it's not as bad as 250. And secondly, I think a lot of Australian companies have already set up pretty substantial pharmaceutical plant and equipment in the US, so they might find they're in not such a bad position as we first expected.
Yes, we've heard that from CSL and Sigma in particular, that even though their share prices dropped substantially as that announcement came through, they may not be as impacted as first thought.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, CSL have been in the United States for over 30 years. It was quite a deliberate strategy some time ago. So they're largely unaffected by the Trump get jobs back to America type policies, a bit like BlueScope has done the same thing in steel. But of course, there will be impacts on pharmaceutical consumers domestically in the US, even if Australia is not as affected as we first thought.
Yes, it seems to be that every step of the way, Australia somehow narrowly avoids the worst of Trump's tariffs after the initial shock. Would you agree with that?
We have, and maybe Prime Minister Albanese doesn't need a meeting because we seem to be exempt from the worst of all the tariff changes without having a meeting. So maybe having a meeting would make it worse. I'm not sure, but so far, yeah, we've escaped a few bullets in terms of the trade front.
Now, there is a meeting, as we know, it's coming up pretty soon. How do you expect that to go? Because I think any world leader stepping into the Oval Office, if it is one of those sorts of Oval Office meetings, and it probably will be, it can be a pretty terrifying situation. We all think of what happened to President Zelensky on his first visit there.
Yeah, and yet the meetings with Zelensky are now quite affable. So yeah, I think it was quite a one-off. Look, I don't think America has big beefs with Australia in particular, so I don't expect fireworks like we've seen with some of the other meetings. And on the other hand, there's been a lot of quite substantial meetings where Trump has brokered peace deals in Africa, for instance, that have been quite different. But look, I think basically because Australia doesn't have too many controversial disputes with the United States, I wouldn't expect to be too alarmed from the meeting between Prime Minister Albanese and President Trump.
Well, we've got this image here, which was taken from the kind of food line at the UN of all the different world leaders, and there's Trump and Albanese. We saw the selfie first. This is the official portrait of the two leaders with their partners as well there. I guess the issue is, Tim, is that these are two gentlemen who are very different when it comes to politics. And we are hearing from Albanese, we've heard his thoughts about Donald Trump. They need to work with each other because Australia needs a relationship with the US and vice versa from a business sense, but also a security sense in the Pacific. What are the challenges for these two to get along? They essentially know they have to, but I can't imagine they really agree with each other on much.
I think they can. They obviously have very different styles, personal styles. Albanese a lot more low-key. And Trump is sort of the I'm above politics, I'm very different, while Albanese's had all his life in politics. But institutionally, the United States and Australia still have a lot of connections, and in terms of, I think, particularly global security, particularly in the Pacific, they have interests to get along. So I think for that reason, they will, whatever difference there is in personal style.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's move on because Anthony Albanese has been pretty busy over the weekend. He's been vowing to defend democracy itself alongside Keir Starmer at the UK Labor conference in Liverpool, pledging unity on AUKUS jobs and also global challenges. This is an interesting one, obviously, because these are two leaders who, again, are quite different, similar in some aspects, but Albanese is far better at politics than what we have seen Sir Keir Starmer show over the past year? What do you think?
I think that's right. I think Anthony Albanese's got more experience in politics. He's basically done it nearly all his adult life. And he's also a bit more of an affable, sort of easy character. Even people that disagree with Albanese don't dislike him. Well, I think Sir Keir Starmer is quite a stiff personality. He was a prosecutor, and they turned to him after the debacle of Jeremy Corbyn and the hard left. And so he was a compromise, and he's not a natural politician, very much a lawyer, very much a prosecutor, and he's finding it hard to compete with quite good retail politicians like Nigel Farage. I mean, say what you like about reform, Farage is a pretty good retail politician, and Labor in Britain is starting to lose its working class vote, particularly in the north, but in the rest of the country. And I don't think that's something would necessarily happen to Anthony Albanese because of his personal style, but also quite a different political system.
Yes, and it's interesting to see, this is not the first time we've seen an Australian leader head to the UK to speak to their corresponding party. Tony Abbott spoke to the Tories. What was the key message from Anthony Albanese's speech to the Labor with a You faithful in Liverpool?
Look, I think it was about answering populist solutions. You know, he said a lot of things about the simpleness of slogans where, you know, the public policy problems we face today are very complex, and democracy has some threats. So I think it was to sort of provide an alternative to the Trump stroke Nigel Farage type politics, and really to gee up the troops, because unlike Anthony Albanese, Sir Keir Starmer's polling's pretty bad, and they have first past the post electoral system, so they could get beaten by reform. Having said that, it's a long time until the UK election. They have 5-year terms as opposed to 3-year terms in Australia, so they do have a bit of time to recover themselves and take on the threat, which I think Albanese was trying to encourage them to do so.
And it is quite a threat. You talk about Reform Party, and we have a look at the recent polls that suggest that Reform would end up with hundreds of seats and in fact be in power. The end of the two-party state for the UK. Labor would lose its majority. The Tories down to something like 30 or 40 seats. This is the party of Margaret Thatcher. What's happened to the Tories? They were in power for quite a long time. They changed leaders numerous times. Is this a similar story to what we see in Australia with the Liberal Party? Is it stuck in the middle and not answering to anybody?
Well, the Liberal Party in Australia has got the Teal movement, which in a way is like the DLP who kept Labor Party out in the 1950s and 60s. So in a way, it's the smaller Liberal branch. So it's quite similar. In Britain, remember, Aaron, I mean, it was the Liberal and the Tory party that were once dominant, and Labor was the third party. So this does happen in British politics, not every year, but certainly over a century, there can be a realignment of the parties. And the Tory party really hasn't recovered from Brexit and from, pretty bad governing, in their most recent term of office.
But it's happening right across Europe. We're seeing in France the same situation. We're seeing economics, we're seeing immigration being huge issues there as well. The difference is between them is that Australia has the same protests, the same questions about the economy as well, yet Labor is thrashing the opposition, yet in the UK, it's the other way around. Why do you think that Albanese is choosing to frame it around defending democracy? Is that something that is working for him that isn't working in the UK?
Well, he has two advantages. One is he's got preferential voting, so you don't have the same sort of landslides you have in Britain. And secondly, there's compulsory voting, which really helps, Albanese in Australia. But at the end of the day, the same issues are at play, and that is, the white working class feel they've been clobbered by, free market economics, and now they're being clobbered by, if you like, identity politics and the issues of immigration and climate change and sort of government censorship, where both Starmer and Albanese have come under criticism.
Yes, nothing fixes a problem like a government ID. We'll leave it there for now. Appreciate your time as always. Professor Tim Harcourt, thank you so much.